Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll show you a dystopian action horror film, The Forever Purge. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. In the future, America is suffering firearm abuse and violence. It is normal to see people shooting each other with guns in the street. With the crime rate rising, the government cannot afford to sit still. Therefore, they institute the annual purge plan from 7 p.m. on March 20th to 7 a.m. the next day. In other words, during these 12 hours, Americans can do anything without being punished by law. Killing is no exception. Since the proposal is implemented, the unemployment rate in the United States has dropped to 1%. The crime rate plunged to its lowest on record, and violence cooled down. As such, the U.S. government continues to carry out the program for several years. Over time, however, the intent of the purge begins to change. At first, they destroy the wicked, but now they wipe out the immigrants, and spark off issues about racial discrimination. The racial discrimination against blacks in the U.S. is very serious, so the birth of Purge Day gives the whites a chance to eliminate the blacks. Adela and Juan, a stowaway couple from Mexico, are preparing themselves for their first purge. Before the annual purge arrives, their life is not much different from the local Americans. Juan works in the Tucker family ranch, while Adela earns a living at a slaughterhouse. Juan is after the ranch owner's heart because he has excellent horse training skills. But the owner's son Dylan is somewhat jealous of his superb performance and often stirs up troubles for him. Juan's anxiety heightens as the annual purge approaches. 1 hour prior to the purge, Juan and Adela take refuge in a Mexican migrant community. In the meantime, most American civilians return to their own homes for safety. When the event kickstarts in the evening, the street is echoed with gunshots and screams. At the migrant community, Adela chats with their security guard on the rooftop. Over there, she sees trucks of killers pontificating about cleansing America. Adela looks through the scope of a rifle and discovers that there are many black Americans trapped in the container of the convoy underneath. Noticing Adela's intention to rescue the victims, the security guard stops her. It is not easy to maintain their own safety in such chaos, letting alone saving others. Adela has no choice, but puts down the rifle. The security guard wonders why Adela is skillful with using weapons, but Adela leaves without answering him. Actually, Juan and Adela fell out with Mexican drug cartels, and were forced to flee to the U.S. Before coming to the U.S., they were trained to use weapons for self-defense. Upon returning to the ground floor, Adela falls asleep. Fortunately, the 12-hour period comes and goes without any incident at the refuge. The next day, as the siren sounds, normal life is then resumed. People walk out of their homes one after another to congratulate themselves on surviving the night. On his way to work, Juan sees countless corpses lying on the street and blood running down from roads. Cleaners are deployed to clean and sterilize the city. Adela also reports to her duty. During the break, she walks out of the workplace to get some fresh air. A goat trapped in an iron cage catches her attention. Adela wants to release the goat, so she stretches her head into the cage to reach for the switch. As soon as she turns on the switch, a hidden switch above Adela's head is triggered. To her shock, Adela is locked up and thrown onto the top of the cage. Then from the surrounding trash cans, several men with rabbit masks and machetes appear. Adela cries out that the purge is over, but the men ignore her. When Adela loses hope, her boss shows up just in time to kill the purgers and save Adela. As a result, Adela and boss are accused of murder and arrested by the policeman. Meanwhile, Juan and his colleague arrive at the ranch, only to find the owner's family has been taken hostage. The attackers are a group of underprivileged men who resent rich men making money out of poor people. Upholding the slogan of Forever Purge, they aim to get rid of the rich. Ranch owner reasons that ever since the land was taken over from the natives, the rich man has made their fortune from the poor. The annual purge itself is proposed by the tycoons in Washington, D.C., with the sole purpose of cashing in on the national crisis. He further explains that the mastermind is glad to see more chaos being created. Agitated by such harsh truth, Thug shoots the owner dead. Juan and colleague then rush in with their guns and fire a volley of shots at the group of thugs. A number of terrorists fall dead, and some others flee into rooms to call for help, but are shot right off the phone. Shortly after Juan and colleague rescue the Tuckers, more cars are coming towards them. Dylan ushers everyone into his truck and flees the scene. From the radio broadcast, they are informed that none of the states is safe. Fans of the night of killing have decided the purge is ever after, and continue slaughtering Americans in the street, with the mantra of getting their America back, and making America great again. Juan gives a call to Adela to check her well-being, but no one answers. Reading Juan's anxiety for his wife, Dylan decides to return to the city for Adela, out of gratitude for Juan's rescue. Dylan's wife and younger sister give their full support for the detour. Juan's kindness has indeed moved the heart of Dylan, and changed his attitude. Back to the city streets, gun-toting purgers start to attack police vans. The police car which carries Adela is blown up by the thugs. Adela and boss survived the explosion without any injuries, but the policemen have died. Merely seconds after the bombs, the car is ambushed by purgers, who are banging against the door furiously. Their aggression towards the patrol wagon suggests that their violence is well organized. In Adela's desperation, she hears gunfire outside the car. Moments later, Juan opens the door to pick up Adela. While Adela boards Dylan's truck, boss returns to his home to rescue his family. Dylan's truck leaves the mess behind, and makes a few stops along the way to top up supplies. The five of them finally rest at a hotel, and learn from the news the states has declared martial law across the country. With the whole nation thrown into turmoil, troops are deployed to deal with chaos and destruction in each city. In other words, not a single city in the US is safe now. Just as they are wondering what to do and where to go, there comes good news from the radio. The prime ministers of Mexico and Canada, having seen the US paralyzed by violence, decide to open their borders to any unarmed American residents within the next 6 hours. Those who manage to enter these two countries are allowed to stay there until law and order is restored in the US. Cheered up by the news, they set off immediately for Mexico to seek help. Unexpectedly, even at late night, some purgers riding on motorbikes are preying on them. In the dire situation, Dylan's sister puts the purgers' flag up on the window and shouts out the slogan of Forever Purge. Her strategy works, as the purgers mistake them for their companions and leave them alone. When they reach the nearest point to the Mexican border, the whole place is engulfed by flames. A fierce clash between the army and riders is taking place. Even worse, a heavy traffic jam jeopardizes their plan. The five of them can do nothing but to alight and walk to the border. They painstakingly take every step forward, fighting against the purgers. All of a sudden, their way is blocked by a purger's tank. So they plan to take shelter in a theater nearby until the tank leaves. Even though they move rather fast, the purgers have spotted them and bombed the theater entrance. In the chaos, only Adela and Dylan's wife enter the theater, while the rest are stuck outside. Juan cries out to Adela, telling her to meet at the other end of the theater. And then, Juan leads the rest to the back exit, but they are soon surrounded by the thugs. Since the purgers outnumber them, they lay down their weapons. Knowing that Juan and his colleague are Mexicans, the sadistic captain of the thugs orders Dylan's sister to kill them. Sister refuses to do so, then captain's mother shoots colleague dead and continues to threaten the sister. Fortunately, the government troops reach in time to suppress the purgers. Juan seizes the opportunity to pick up his gun and kill captain's mother, who is watching over them. When captain returns after defeating the soldiers, his mother is already dead. Filled with fury, captain swears that he will wipe out Juan's group. On the other hand, Adela leads Dylan's wife to evade the theater through the back exit. They bump into a fellow Mexican outside the theater and follow him to a temporary shelter. Coincidentally, Juan and the rest also flee to the same place. However, their joy of reunion is quickly crushed by the latest update of the situation. To avoid being caught up in the attack on the military base, the Mexican government decides to close the border immediately. This news is extremely sad for all the Mexicans present. Luckily, the woman in charge of the shelter is capable enough to source a truck from a Mexican villain. Then they head for the border under cover of darkness, preparing to cross illegally over a high mountain back into Mexico. However, before they see the local villain in person, they are tailed by the purgers. It's no surprise that this time the thugs are again led by Captain. As soon as Captain receives information about Juan's location, he rushes over with his gangs. Juan, Dylan, and other capable men stay behind to fend off the purgers, while other survivors retreat to the safe zone. As soon as the captain's team arrives at the firing range, shots ring out from all directions. At first, Juan's group manages to kill several purgers by surprise attacks. However, their positions are soon exposed, and they are bombarded with bullets. Overwhelmed by the intensity of the battle, they finally hide in a safe wooden house on the way to the border. Now that all the bullets are run out, they brace themselves with hand weapons, such as machetes and bolts. Under the leadership of the local Mexican villain, the refugees tackle the purgers in the form of guerrilla warfare. As expected, the rioters who are unfamiliar with the area are besieged as soon as they get up the hill and immediately suffer heavy casualties. Some riders are shot dead by a bolt before they could see anyone. Seeing his companions all die one after another, Captain takes advantage of the chaos to snatch away Adela. Little does he know that Juan and Dylan are hidden right behind him. Juan and Dylan throw a harness around Captain's neck and strangle him dead. Then everyone joins forces to wipe out the rest of the enemy and reunite with Dylan's wife and sister in Mexico. By the time they arrive in Mexico safe and sound under police's protection, riots are still ongoing in the US. No one can tell what the great America would look like after the prolonged violence. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Peace out.